Hello and welcome to GILES the SEX Therapist, a better sex guide for men. This show contains some explicit material. Today, the pleasure's all mine. So, first question, Giles, is masturbation okay?
Hi Steve, yes, masturbation is perfectly okay. It's a natural exploration of your body and it's a perfect way of actually starting a sexual relationship with your partner.
What does society make of masturbation though?
Masturbation is varied in society depending on different culture. If you're looking at the Asian culture, it's very much frowns upon masturbation. White culture or Western civilization are getting more towards acceptance of masturbation. The church, however, still very much frowns upon it as it's considered wasting the seed of God.
So, and also you don't have to wank to get an orgasm, do you?
No, there's many ways of actually achieving an orgasm. Naturally, the most realistic one you probably remember as a child or a teenager is wet dreams. And wet dreams is a natural phenomenon. It basically happens because due to the amount of hormones released in your body in that exchange, your body is producing far more sperm and semen, and therefore you get erotic dreams. It's a happy release in more ways than one.
What about those dreams? Because sometimes, I can remember as a kid, I used to have some really disturbing sexual dreams. Should I be worried about things like that?
Not overly worried about them. They are considered as a disturbing sex dream. Sex dreams are supposed to be enjoyed, but some things which, if you're heterosexual and you're starting getting dreams about homosexual acts, but I wouldn't want to freak all you heterosexuals out that it is a tendency which you may have underlying, but there is a curiosity there, and I think when you're a teenager or going into your early 20s, it is perfectly acceptable to question your sexuality, question your identity. And if you do start having dreams about having penetrative sex with somebody in a dream, or wanking over models in magazines, newspapers, friends even though you would never share that with them, it's perfectly okay. It doesn't mean you are gay. If you actually think, maybe I'm wanking more over guys than I actually are girls, then that is a bit of an underlying message going from your unconscious that maybe you are curious and maybe you are actually more open-minded about your sexuality than the average straight man.
Back to masturbation. Now, what can you do to make it more fun?
Well, that's an interesting one, Steve. Making masturbation fun is a very, very important factor. It's not always about slipping your todger into your hand until you come. It's about actually experiencing what exactly thrills your body. It's a time between you and your tool or whatever to enjoy it. It's about using a whole different regime of things. You can either finger yourself when you're actually masturbating or wanking. Now, there is a bit of a misnomer about fingering yourself. It's not the only way to stimulate your prostate. You can actually do this very, very easily by pressing firmly between your rectum and your testicles, and you can actually stimulate your prostate just as well. You can also use things like butt plugs. This is about sticking a foreign body, as a medical profession would consider it, up inside of you to stimulate your anus. You've also got things like cock rings, and there's also a particular type of toy, apart from dildos and vibrators, which men can use, which is a fleshlight, which is a imitation anus for those men who may be versatile in a relationship, but they're actually going out with a guy who's active only, so he can actually then experience with his partner or on his own a way of actually getting that side of his sexual priority fulfilled.
Right, so here's the big challenge. I want you to give me 7 things I can do for a better wank.
7 techniques for a better wank. Well, you've got the old cold climax, where you grab hold of some ice cubes in one hand or something warm in the other hand while you're actually experiencing masturbation. What happens is it increases the amount of flow due to the blood in your hand, due to the cold or the warmth, and you're able to actually be far more stimulated. That's number one. The two is, we touched upon it a moment ago, is rings around your penis. This is actually to maintain a real rigidness in your shaft between the gland and the base. You've got a lot of blood actually going through there. If you are getting towards the older years, you do tend to lose erections quite quickly. So it's very, very important to actually, experiment with a cock ring or a penis ring, and that way you're able to maintain a good rigidness. That's also very, very good to actually maintain a good climax. The third one is palm rubber. Once you have a hard-on or a boner or an erection, this is where you actually place lube inside of your hand, and rather than rub your penis with your hand, you keep rubbing the tip of your penis against the palm of your hand. So it's almost feeling like that moment when you're actually touching your head and you've got pre-cum or you've just ejaculated. It's that real heightened sensation. It just sends you wild. Every guy who's actually ejaculated or pre-cum and you touch the tip of your gland, you know it's going to send you wild. And there's also the gentle tap. This is a good way, which is done when you're wearing your underwear, and it keeps you erect. Fullest erections, you tap on the tip and your penis actually stays against your belly button and your hand is by your belly button, and you're just actually giving yourself that little strategic tap every so often just to send you wild, because not everybody can actually do a full wank because you just don't have time. Go to the bathroom, have a quick tap, and it just gives you that sort of happy release. The screw on your hand, that's another one. This is which you're most comfortable using. Thumb against your belly button, again, very similar to the gentle tap. And it basically feels like a penetrating vagina. And if you're gay or you're into anal sex, because a lot of men, not necessarily just because they're straight, don't do anal sex. That's another misnomer. A lot of men enjoy penetrative sex with dildos or whatever, which are positioned by their girlfriends or their wives or partners, and it doesn't mean you're gay, so don't panic, just enjoy. You've also got the plastic bag. This is a fun one. It's very, very clean. You fill the plastic bag with a load of KY jelly. Make sure it's not Vaseline, because that will actually ruin the bag, just like it will ruin a condom. And you just put the bag full of the climaxing substitute around your penis, and you actually penetrate it as if it was like an anus or a vagina, and it is very, very fulfilling. The ball holder, that's the number 7. The ball holder is basically where, when you are actually wanking, is actually when you actually extend your balls. Some find pulling on them on an upward fashion is good. Some find it on a lowward fashion. There's no hard and fast way, excuse the pun, of actually doing that. It's perfectly down to taste, but it does increase the stimulation between the fluid which comes from your prostate, which is your seminal fluid, which joins your sperm, and it gives you the climax you've always wanted.
What about men who come really quickly when they masturbate?
There can be a physical reason for that, or can be a psychological one.
And what about if you think you spend too much time wanking?
Well, if you spend too much time wanking, it's a very interesting question. That could be considered as masturbation addiction. If it's a problem for you or your partner, then obviously that becomes a problem. If you wank once a day, once a week or whatever, if you're completely happy with that and it's not interfering with your sex life, then there's not a problem. But if you're actually wanking more and then you're finding when your partner is wanting to be frisky with you and you just can't perform, then it becomes a problem for them, then in turn becomes a problem for you. So then it's the time to actually ask yourself a question. Dr. Patrick Carnes, a leading expert in sexual addiction, suggests there are 10 possible warning signs for this. Number 1 is feeling your behavior is out of control. So if you're actually thinking, oh my God, I'm wanking 20 times a day and still having sex, it could be physiological, it could be psychological, you need to get it checked out. Number 2, being aware that there may be a severe consequence if you continue. Now, this is where a person actually starts getting scared of consequences. It could be, oh my God, my cock is getting sore, or I'm not going to be able to come. And because obviously if you do come once, straight away, it's going to take you a bit of time to actually come again. That is normal, so don't get freaked out on that one. Number 3, feeling unable to stop your behavior despite knowing the consequences. It can be very much where it is becoming an addiction. You can't stop. It's becoming an OCD, which is an obsessive compulsive disorder. This is where your problems are really getting out of control. 4, persistently pursuing destructive or high-risk activities. You could be going cottaging, you could be going to saunas, you could be going out to parks and meeting people to actually fulfill this need. Apart from it being unsafe for you, it is also not wise for your relationship. You need to communicate this problem. If you do have a problem or you do perceive yourself as doing this, discuss it with your partner, and that way they can actually support you with this rather than you actually keeping it as a hidden secret, and then guilt and anxiety will just exacerbate everything. That will make it worse and you want to do it more. Number 5, wanting to stop or control what you're doing and taking active steps to limit your activities. You've got to do it wisely. It's like if you give up something, like giving up chocolate cold turkey for Lent or giving up smoking, it's not something you can literally stop. Your unconscious is going to say to you, I want this and I want it now, and you're going to want it more than you ever wanted it before. So you need to make sure you've got the care and the services to support you in this, and make sure you do it wisely. Number 6, using sexual fantasies as a way of coping with difficulty or feelings or situations. This is where fantasies are fine, but if you're actually not doing anything about them in a masturbatory sense or in a cottaging sense, that's okay. But you've got to make sure that you remain honest to yourself and your integrity remains paramount, because once you break that with yourself, you're always going to beat yourself up with it eventually. Number 7, needing more and more sexual activity in order to experience the same high. Your unconscious is a cunning tool really in your brain. If it's not getting what its need is met, it's going to up the ante. Intense mood swings. Guys, if you're actually stopping wanking and you really want that wank and you're really horny, or you're doing whatever and you're trying to, the more you try to blot it out of your mind, the more you want to wank or want to do something about it. Acknowledge it and try to seek help. 9, spending an increased amount of time planning, engaging. This is where the OCD section is coming in. If you're starting to actually at work thinking, okay, how can I actually arrange my next wank? How can I do this? How can I do that? This is really your unconscious hitting you over the head with a psychological hammer. Wake up, I've got a problem. Neglecting important social, occupational, or recreational activities. That's the biggest one of them all. It's literally saying to you, come on, Joe. Not that I'm picking on anybody called Joe, but you do have a problem. You need to get it sorted. It's taken over your life and it's going to take over your relationships, and it's not healthy. So come on, guys, do yourself a favor. And, I've given you 10 tips here. Get yourself sorted. Get in touch.
And finally, can you hurt yourself by wanking too much?
You can. Wanking too much. I've had friends. I've also done it myself. You could be getting it, you could be having a bit of a session on webcam, because tell me a gay guy who hasn't actually jacked off on cam watching another guy, or even a magazine or whatever, or even with your partner. If your partner's actually gripping your penis or your cock or your tool or your todger in a way which you're not used to and are getting frisky, you can tear it, and if you tear a certain part of it, which is where your gland actually meets your foreskin, you're going to bleed like a pig.
Well, on that cautionary note, thank you very much, Giles. You can find out more by going to GILESthesextherapist.com. That's all one word. And do come back again soon and download some more Giles the Sex Therapist. So find out more by going to GILESthesextherapist.com. That's Giles with an I. The presenter was Steve Campen with sex therapist Giles Dee-Shapland. And it's a creative radio production.